guys, welcome back to another episode of Magic 3D Printing. As you can see, I've got a CR10 here that I was about to change out the fang on. I wasn't real happy with my other one. I got part of the way into this and decided I was going to do something entirely different. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this CR10 into a CR10S. As you can see, I've already added the second lead screw, so that's all done. I've got a set of guide wires here that I bought from 3D Print to Form as a gantry stabilization unit. Other than that, this is relatively stock right now. I've got some LED lights I added to it, just a few minor changes. So the big one really is adding the additional lead screw. So what we're going to do is we're going to change out the motherboard. I've already bought this new motherboard. This was purchased from 3dprinttoform.com for a really good price. I've already examined it. It has the proper capacitor, so there's not going to be an issue with the temperature fluctuation bug that came out in a lot of early 2.1 boards. I also purchased a new screen that has the dual cables, and the reason I did this, I am aware that you can use the old screen if you clip off the notch on the cable and turn it around and force it in backwards. The problem with that though is that it requires an additional firmware change. I already have another CR10S, so to be honest with you, trying to keep track of which one has a special change in it just for the display, I really wasn't into that. So this was purchased on eBay. There was a Chinese retailer that would ship these out, 18 bucks free shipping. But of course, as a lot of us know, that's a slow book from China. I was able to get this on eBay for $25 from a US shipper, so this came in very short time. So we're going to upgrade to the CR10S, and I've already got a limit switch to set up a filament out sensor. Once that's all done and I upload the new firmware, the next step is going to be to install this, which is the new Stinger bed leveler from 3D Print to Form. Very excited about this. The testing that I've seen done looks amazing. I've also bought a new hot end. My preference, instead of the E3D V6, is the E3D Lite 6. I know it's a little heavier, but it does allow the Bowden tube, in my case the Capricorn tubing, to go all the way down to the hot end, and that does work quite well. The Capricorn XS tubing is good to about 340 degrees. When I'll never print that hot, but what I did do the other day is I insulated my CR10S bed and was able to print polycarbonate ABS. So I do like this setup with the E3D Lite 6 with Capricorn tubing. So I'm not going to bore you guys with a lot of watching me take out screws and stick in wires and all that stuff. I'm going to come back once I've completed the first step, which is the upgrade to the CR10S. I'm going to tear this baby apart and get all the parts installed. Once I've done that, we'll come back and then we'll take a look at installing the new automatic bed leveler from 3D Print to Form. So stay tuned. Okay guys, so we have upgraded the CR10 control box to a CR10S. Like I mentioned, I replaced the motherboard and I also replaced the screen. The screen again because I wanted to have the dual cable so it would match my other CR10S and I wouldn't have to bother with variations in firmware. Now this process was actually a little bit easier than I expected, because what I did was first I took a photograph of my existing CR10 motherboard so I could see all of the wiring and everything that was going on. After that, I went online and found a couple of photographs, one of the current CR10 motherboard, and the reason I did that is because not all of the cables are labeled. So things like your thermistors and some of those things. I think one of the fans is not marked, so I basically use this to go back in and actually label all of the cables. Afterwards then I went online, and this is not the greatest picture, but you get the idea. What I did was found a picture of the wiring diagram for the new motherboard. Now if you guys decide to do this, remember there's a lot of different versions of that motherboard out there. So lay your new motherboard out. You know, if you're doing this with a 2.1 version of the motherboard, find a picture that specifically looks exactly like the motherboard that you're going to be installing. So I did that. Ended up being very easy to install, no problems at all. I powered it up once to make sure everything came up okay, and it did. The next thing is a filament sensor, because the CR10 doesn't come with one originally. Now what I had was a CR10 set of extension cables, and that came with a filament sensor cable. But I wanted a longer cable to match all of my cables, since I did have a set of extensions on there. So what I did is I took the original cable, put it into the control box and mounted it, put on a zip tie so that it would keep it solid, and put some strain relief on it. And then I took another piece of wire, or I should say 4 or 3 wires, and essentially took some 3-pin JST connectors and soldered the extensions on there. And then this filament sensor itself is actually nothing more than a stop, like a Z-stop, an end stop that comes with your CR10. So I printed out this really nice flex cable holder that was on Thingiverse, and I'll put the description for that down below. That basically mounts in here and allows the filament, depending on where your spool holder is, to flex, and makes a real nice holder for the filament sensor itself. So that's pretty much what I've done so far. Everything's worked out great. I actually put this filament sensor, or this stop I should say, has an LED on it. So I actually powered everything back up again, took a piece of filament, passed it through it, and made sure that it lit up. So at this point everything's ready to go. I'm going to button up this mess I've got here. The next part, as I mentioned before, is we're going to install the Stinger automatic bed leveler. I'm not going to videotape all of that, because Dave Aschenbrenner from 3dprintoform.com has done a really nice job. So I'm going to install everything, get it set up, and then I'm going to come back to you guys and give you my impression of how the installation worked, how well the video instructions kept me on track, and then how well it basically functions. So I'll be back. Thanks, guys. I thought you guys would like an opportunity to see exactly what comes in the box. Now I want to give you guys a full disclosure. This unit was sent to me for evaluation. I did not buy this unit, but you're going to get the good, the bad, and the ugly. Just like all my reviews, you're going to get an honest one. So let's take a look and see what's in here. The first thing you're going to find is some paperwork. And this is nice, because this is going to give you links to all of the YouTube instructions, videos, how-tos that they've put out at 3D Print to Form. Inside the box, you're going to find a very nice, professionally designed packaging. The first piece is essentially a cover for the fan, for the so you don't get heat creep, basically. Nicely done. It's looks like it's done in a yellow PLA. The next piece is the carriage, and this carriage, I was a little concerned about this when I first got it, because the carriage is mostly all metal except for a couple of printed parts here. It looks like it's been made out of aluminum, but I'm not big on metal, so I'm not certain about that. And essentially the way this functions is the hot end will mount in this hole here, and when this comes down, there's 4 rollers on this, and it will touch the bed, and you'll hear a relay click.
and I'm going to shoot some video showing exactly how that process works. This is nicely made. The wheels and everything, I mean, everything is professional, very smooth movement. So this looks really good. Next piece is a couple of fans. Now you can buy this package two different ways. You can either buy the package where everything is pre-printed, it comes with the fans, comes with all the mounts, everything's pre-wired, or you can save a few bucks and get the STLs and print a lot of those parts yourself. But this was really nice that everything was pre-wired. Underneath the plastic in the box, you're going to find some more items. One thing is going to be this relay. And the relay, I mounted mine, you've got some freedom to mount this pretty much wherever you want. I mounted mine on the back left of the printer. So this relay basically connects the stinger, and in my case I also asked for one of these sensors. Now you can use the Z-stop that comes with your printer, and I understand it works great, but I really like this little sensor, and I'm going to show you in a video in a few minutes exactly why I like this sensor. So that it gives you your connection. There's also a piece that either comes in red or gold, and that's referred to as the keeper. So the keeper is the part that actually connects your hot end to the stinger unit itself. So one is designed to work with the stock hot end. The other is designed to work with either a, well, I think this also works with the Micro Swiss. The Gold Keeper is designed to handle both the E3D V6 and the E3D Light 6, which is actually my preference. In addition to that, you're going to get a bag that's going to have a strain relief for the bed. You're also going to get these spacers, and these spacers essentially are going to replace your springs because you're not going to need them anymore. In addition to that, you're going to get zip ties, you're going to get some solderless connections for the wiring in case you guys don't like the solder. The soldering was very minimal, but... Okay guys, so this is the Stinger automatic bed leveler. To make things a little quicker, I've actually preheated my my bed up to normal printing temperatures for PLA. So it comes to the top or the front left corner of the bed just to sort of get its coordinates, and then what it does, it goes to the center and it comes on and touches the bed, and you'll hear it click, and that's the relay that's connected in the back left of the printer. You also notice that there's a red LED up here. This is at the top of this sensor. You see the blue bottom down here. And what I really like about that sensor is, you can use your normal Z-stop, but you hear this thing click and the light goes off whenever it touches the bed. So if anything ever happens to that sensor and it malfunctions, it won't be lit up like it normally is, and I really like that. So now what it's going to do, it's going to go around and it's going to do 9 touch points on the bed for the leveling. And personally, I let this thing run through this sequence every time I print because, one, I'm a little forgetful, so if I move this printer or do anything to it that might affect the level, the ABL will correct that. And two, to be honest with you, it really doesn't add much print time at all to the print sequence. So I just let it run. And here we go. So you still see it coming down, and hopefully you can see it touching the bed and hearing that click. Now once it finishes this sequence, what's going to happen is right now the bed has been brought down to 150 degrees by the software, and that's just to make sure that generally speaking there's a proper amount of expansion on the hot end and the heated bed. And then it's going to, at this point, it's going to pause and it's going to bring the temperature back up to 200 degrees Celsius, and hopefully you can see that. Also on here on the printer, you can see this is the filament sensor that I made myself. I just printed out one of these hinged filament sensors off Thingiverse and put an end stop in there, and then just ran the wiring to the connector on the motherboard inside the system. So that was real simple. Alright, so now we are almost at 200 degrees. Once it hits it, of course, it'll pause just a little bit and stabilize the temperature. And once that's stabilized, then what's going to happen is it's going to bring the sensor from where it currently is over to the front left of the bed. So the reason it brought it up to 200 degrees is it's going to do a purge line, and of course it wants to make sure the hot end is hot enough for the filament to pass through. So there we go, we're doing our purge line. And you notice my wiring job is not the best in the world. And there we go. So even though it does a purge line, I still let it do a skirt. I really like to make sure that everything is flowing up, you know, perfectly. If there's any junk on the hot end from the previous job between the purge line and that skirt, it usually gets wiped off. I'm a little bit sloppy on checking some of this stuff. I think I've got it set up to do four purge lines. Or I'm sorry, four outlines in the skirt. And I'll get this little piece of filament that's dropped off. There we go. Now it's going to start the actual print in the middle of the skirt. And I just wanted to shoot enough of this footage for you guys to get a look at what a beautiful job this does on laying down those that first layer. I mean, I haven't seen a first layer go down that clean since I bought my Artemis, and of course that baby cost a couple of grand. So for buying a printer that's this inexpensive, to get this kind of a first layer is absolutely great. And again, I could get a good first layer before, but then I'd do a few print jobs and something would change, and then then it wouldn't be so good. I'd have to cancel it. Then after I cancel it, I'd have to go back and restart the job and re-level, and this really cuts out a lot of that frustration. Alright, and you can hear that it's doing that last line around the perimeter, which is the one it always slows down for. I've sliced this. I did it in Tinkercad. This is a sort of a test circle. It's 100 millimeters wide and 1 millimeter thick. And again, we're not going to go through this whole print job with you guys. What I am going to do though is I wanted to wait until it starts laying down that first layer and show you guys how beautiful it is. Once I got this out of Tinkercad, it just took it into Simplify 3D, and told it I wanted to do a 0.1 layer because I really wanted to see how clean those lines would come out. And I don't know if you guys can see that at this point, but it has laid down some absolutely beautiful lines. I know the mirror makes it a little tough to see, but this will give you guys a real good feel for the quality of lines you're going to get when you have something leveled this nicely. Let me try to get in here a little bit closer so you guys can see that layer. And that is a beauty. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you guys, just give you an idea of how this thing operates, what to expect, and I did have to go through a little bit and adjust my Z offset, but that's pretty typical. So for a while it was a little too close, and then it was a little too far away. I was getting some fine lines in between that first layer, and right now I think I'm set at about 0.79 millimeters and getting absolutely a perfect first layer on this bad boy. So that's pretty much it. That is the Stinger automatic bed leveler in action, along with my homemade filament runout sensor, which seems to be working great. And so let's get on with looking at some pieces that we printed earlier. Okay, well, now that we've basically got the stinger installed and you guys have had a chance to see the leveling sequence, this is the test disc that I was basically printing. Again, came out gorgeous. I mean, you look closely around the edges, there's no gapping, any place even around the center. The back, I use magic glue, but the back, you know, came out absolutely flawless. And the real mark of that is not seeing any marks or spacing in between the filament when it prints out, because if your gapping is too wide, you're still going to see it in the final print. So that came out great. One of the things I also did was I did a stringing test. I'm sorry, a bridging test. So the bridging, it has pieces that print in various sizes. This particular piece was done at, I think it's 25 millimeters, and it came out great. The pieces, there's absolutely no sagging whatsoever. The next piece that I stepped up to looks like it was about 10 millimeters longer, and that shows some slight signs of sagging. And then obviously once I stepped up to the next piece, there's very obvious sagging in that piece, as you can see right here. So I've talked to Dave at 3D Print to Form, and because of the review, he is redesigning the actual fang, if you want to call it that, the vents where the air flows from the fans down to the cooling part, or to the part that's printing. And when I receive those, he's going to send me a set. I'm going to take a look at those, and I'm going to report back on the video, you know, if there was any improvements. I was expecting a little bit better results on these, especially with a dual fan system. And I think, according to what Dave was telling me, he sort of repositioned the airflow, and that should show some improvement. So the next thing I did was I printed this. Now this is a normal 20 millimeter calibration cube that I printed at 300%. You know, this is typically what you want to print, you know, to check your height and width and depth, make sure everything is how it should be. But I wanted to enlarge it to essentially see if I could find any ghosting or ringing going on. And I was actually very impressed. You really have to get it in the light on the Y side. If you get it just right in the light, you can see a tiny bit of ringing on this left-hand side. The other sides are pretty much flawless. There's the Z. The back of this also, something else I was impressed with. I printed this at a 0.2 millimeter layer height. It looks really, really good. In fact, unless you get it into some really bright light, you can't see any layering at all. And this was really dirt cheap filament. I bought this stuff on eBay for another video about filament quality. And in this particular case, this stuff was so cheap. It was 10 bucks for a roll, and it's supposed to be gold, but they spelled it glad. So that tells you how cheap this stuff was. So very impressed with the calibration cube and how clean that came out. The next thing I did, you may recognize this from my Filablend review. This was done. This is the I believe it's the Hand of Fortune by Claven Moo. This is a beautiful print. This was printed in some Tainsei blue PLA. Really came out remarkably nice. So I decided to take the same piece because it has all of the irregular shapes, and to reprint that using the automatic bed leveler. And I tell you, I was very impressed. Everything came out nice and smooth as it did before. I did notice a tiny bit of ringing right back in this area through here, which actually I went back to the original piece and looked at it, and I actually did see a tiny bit of ringing back in that area, which I hadn't noticed before. But all in all, this print came out really, really nice. Just a beautiful, beautiful piece. So generally speaking, I have to tell you, I'm impressed with this kit. Like I said, you can buy it in a couple of ways, with or without some of the parts printed. So if you want to save a little bit of money, you know, you can buy, I think it's about 69 bucks, but I'm going to put the link to the website, to 3D Print to Form, down below the video. But I can highly recommend this. Since I've shot this, I've been printing a ton of pieces on that automatic bed leveler, and I tell you, I love it. I used to screw up, you know, not get my my part re-leveled, or the bed re-leveled often enough, and it would screw up, and I'd have to stop it and restart and re-level. But in any case, this thing works beautifully. So if you guys are in the market for a automatic bed leveler that's going to wow you, I would definitely recommend the Stinger. So if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for new videos coming up in the future. And we will see you again real soon on Magic 3D Printing. Thanks, guys.
Oh, oh.